Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today for our webinar. We sure do appreciate our panelists that have joined us to wrap up this third in a series that we have been hosting on WordPress. You might recall that we hosted two other sessions you may have attended. One was on January 12th, one was on the 19th. And we're just doing a series of informational webinars so that you can deepen your knowledge and understanding of how to leverage WordPress for your website. Today's focus is on marketing tools and tips. And we're just so pleased to have Ross Feldman, who has rejoined. You might recall he was on one of our earlier series, as well as Ben Wilson. And we're welcoming Tammy today into the mix to help us learn a little bit more about, as I mentioned, marketing tools and tips for WordPress. Let's take care of just a couple of housekeeping details around our webinar. We are recording this webinar, and we'll send you a link after the fact. All of our materials will go out on Monday. So you'll have a link to this recording. You'll be able to listen to it in a retrospective. So you don't have to worry too much about taking detailed notes today if you prefer just to listen in. You'll also receive a copy of the slide deck and any other resources that are mentioned. As we go through the session, we have the capacity to entertain questions and comments in Q&A and the chat box. So please feel free to ask questions and make comments. You may have noticed that closed captioning is something that we make available. You can click on live transcript if you'd like to view that option, or you can hide the subtitles if you would like to do so. For those of you that might be new to our audience, just a quick overview of Aparo's service model. We're a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits, and we do that by connecting nonprofits to technology and business processes that enable them to serve more deeply in the community and to better address their missions. So you might know that we have sort of three pillars of service: expert advice, which we refer to as our tech therapy line of business, and tailored solutions that refers to our community impact projects, and then education. Today's webinar is an example of education services that we offer. We also offer training services to specific nonprofits if they need a little bit deeper dive into specific tech tools. Perhaps people need to know more about Excel or Teams or other tech tools, and we're happy to work with individual nonprofits for team training along those lines. This is a little bit more information along those three pillars that I was just mentioning to you. And again, when you receive resources after this webinar, you'll have a copy of this deck so that you can take this information forward if you would like to share it more broadly with your constituents or perhaps your board or other staff members. We do have a form on our website, which is pictured here on the right-hand side of the screen. This is a form that allows you to just give us a little bit of information and ping us that you would like to connect with us more deeply. You have the capacity to subscribe to our email list. And when you do so, we periodically send out newsletters, other information that might be of interest to you, just to keep you in the loop and keep you informed of what Aparo is engaged in. You'll see Yenting Lu's email address on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm filling in for her today. She had to be away. She generally runs these webinars for us. And I realize I neglected to introduce myself, Jennifer Ray with Aparo. So I'm just covering this session for Yenting today, but she's our primary point of contact when you want to follow along on these events. If you've had a chance to engage with us in the past or following today's session, we'd love for you to write a quick Google review. As you know, that's always beneficial to make some communications out there in the social space to let more people know about your opportunity to work with us and sort of your feedback on the interactions that you may have had with us in the past. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and in a moment, I will have one of our panelists begin sharing the deck that we'll be working with today. As I mentioned, we have 3 guests with us: Tammy Murphy, Ben Wilson, and Ross Feldman. As we get underway, let me just remind you quickly, you can see that you guys are on mute and your cameras are off. We don't mind interacting with you live, so please feel free. Drop a message to us in Q&A or chat. We'll be happy to unmute your mic and engage live. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ben Wilson and ask you to take it away for us.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I'm going to try sharing my screen now. I'll share the slide deck and see if I do it right the first time. Presenter mode.
There we go.
And I think I have it up, and I'm going to try to find my slide controls here. Oops. My show notes are not showing me. Bear with me for a second while I get those up. That's all right. I am really botching it right now. I don't like.
All right, so we're going to go one slide back to housekeeping, right where you were, Ben.
Yep. Is that working right there? Is everyone seeing that?
Yeah.
But my speaker notes are showing, so I need to fix that.
Yeah, go ahead and go into presenter view. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, that looks a little bit better. The Chrome on my browser is showing, but I think that's how we were on week 1. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, Jennifer. And just to reintroduce ourselves really quickly, my name is Ben Wilson, and I own and run Delivery Path. And Delivery Path is a WordPress website hosting agency here in Charlotte. We're about 15 years old, and we're a white glove hosting vendor. We specifically work with WordPress agencies, and we work with Aparo and nonprofits quite a bit. Ross and Tammy can go ahead and introduce yourselves now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ross Feldman. I'm with CCP Tech. I'm their virtual CIO. I help to align business strategies with technology strategies. CCP Tech is a managed service provider here in Charlotte, Charleston, and DC. About 12% of our portfolio is nonprofits. I own our nonprofit portfolio. I'm super passionate about the impact in the community and all the great things that the nonprofit portfolio does. I always like to say an hour of time with one of my nonprofits is 10x done in the community. So the more I can help a nonprofit with their mission, the more they can get out there and do more impact. All right, Tammy, take it away.
Hi there. I'm Tammy Murphy. I own Blarney Stone Marketing and Design. I specialize in graphic design, such as logos, digital media, but I also build websites. I work with Ben quite a bit, and I do have several nonprofits sort of in my workload. And what I enjoy working about them is not only learning about the different missions, but how we can utilize design and their website to help them further along that mission. So I've done quite a bit of work with some local nonprofits. So I'm excited to be here.
Tammy, thanks for joining us today. It's good to have you to complement the series and help wrap up the series that we've had for the last 2 weeks. I think today's topics it's going to be a good day. So we had some housekeeping items. Ross, do you want to touch on these items again real quickly? I think Jennifer might have covered it pretty well though.
Exactly. So the housekeeping is that, you can come off of mute. You can ask questions in the chat. You can ask questions in the QA. We don't consider it interruptions. We actually consider it participating. We can definitely be talking heads for several hours, but We like to hear back from you guys if you need us to go over something or you have more specific questions. And again, whatever you're comfortable with, come off mute or ask in the chat. I've already got a question in the Q&A I'm answering, so happy to do so throughout the whole presentation.
All right, thanks, Ross. All right, so I'm going to jump over to our first slide, which is we're going to toss Tammy to the fire here, right with the first slide. And I went ahead and built this slide a little while ago, or a couple weeks ago. Tammy, the reason why I starred Divi is because the graphic is on the right-hand side. That's the reason why there's that star there.
Gotcha.
But go ahead and talk about content builders in WordPress and their importance and value.
Okay, how exciting does content builder sound? Super thrilling. So the beauty of WordPress, which you may have heard in the other two presentations, is that there are lots of DIY applications out there. I know GoDaddy has one, Wix is a really popular one, and it's not that those are don't have their purpose, but what's great about WordPress is you can be as small or as big as you want to be. If your website is just one single page with a photo and a mission statement and an email, it doesn't matter. It can be as little as you want it to be, or it can be a full-blown e-commerce store. It can take donations, it can take appointments. I mean, it can do anything you want it to do. So if you're going to start it all, just go ahead and start on WordPress, because if you start on another builder and then as your business grows, as the nonprofit grows, you're gonna be limited on what you can do. So just go ahead and start out with WordPress. And what's great about WordPress are these content builders. It is not like it was years ago where you have to code every single page if you want to do anything different, meaning I just want 2 columns instead of 1. Something as simple as that, you used to have to code it that way. So you would have to hire someone. What's great now is WordPress and all the people that work through WordPress, they're geniuses. It's like, let's just make a page builder where if you have someone like me design your site, I can put it all together for you. But then when I turn it over to you, I'm happy to make changes for you going forward. However, a lot of times for budgetary reasons, for time reasons, a lot of nonprofit organizations want to be able to make those changes themselves. They don't want to have to wait for someone else to do it. They don't want to pay someone else to do it. So that's where these content builders came along. This list here is just several different ones. I use Aveda a lot. I've used Divi a lot. Beaver Builder's new for me, but I know Aparo uses it. I've used Elementor. Basically what they are page builders. So a lot of them have front end, meaning you can live watch your changes as you make them. You can see them on your website happening. So you will know what it looks like, and then you hit save and you're done. You also can do it on the back end. It's just a preference. But what's great is when the website is turned over to you to manage, if you want to make some simple change, like a photo change or just some simple text, or I want to update, we have a new board member, whatever it is, it gives you the tools to be able to go and make that change for yourself if that's what you would like to do. Again, I have some clients that don't want to mess with it, and that's fine. But some of them take a little bit of practice, but once you've messed with it, you'll see that it is so easy to just go in and make simple changes. If you wanted to redesign a whole page, you might want to get some help. But for the basics, blogging, basically it's arranging your page to look the way you want it to look. You don't have to build out columns. You can just say, okay, make this 3 columns wide, make this 2 columns wide. You can do it however you want. And because of these page builders, you don't have to know the code to do that. You just
Hey, Tammy, can I interrupt real quick? So for those folks that don't know, and I was thinking about this as I'm watching the slide and I was listening to you chat, like not everybody may know this. That acronym that I have up there next to editors, it's what you see is what you get. And so Tammy has described it quite well. You don't have to do any code. There's the screen of the content, 1 column, 2 columns. And just like she said, you could drag things and you could make edits in real time and just hit save. And what you see on the screen is what the rest of the world is going to see when you hit update or publish or whatever the builder. Sorry to interrupt, Tammy. I just wanted folks to know that it's a WYSIWYG, and WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get.
I had actually not ever seen that acronym. So, but no, it's great because I use them. Like, why would I go through all the time of coding a page when I can just put in a page builder and then I can kind of see it live as I'm doing it. So Aveda is a really popular one. I believe there's an upfront cost of maybe $69. It's a one-time fee. You install it, or you have your host install it. what's great about that, and I know Divi does this as well, you have several themes to choose from. They've already got demo sites, maybe 20 or more. And if you see one that you like the way it looks, you can import that demo and then just change the content to fit you. Now, it's going to give you way more than you need because it wants to show you all the things it can do, but you remove the parts you don't want, you don't need, you customize it for your nonprofit, and it already looks beautiful. It's already built for you. So you don't have to start with a blank slate, because that can be kind of intimidating to go, okay, well, where do I start? So a lot of these have pre-made templates that, and just because they're pre-made doesn't mean you can't change them. They may be blue, you want to make them gray. You can make all of those customizations. It just gives you somewhere to start so that you're not staring at a blank screen and wondering, where do I get started? So a lot of these are really, really great. I can say I rarely even have to code anything anymore because of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary of it. You know, one of the neat things that happens when Tammy and I are working together is she'll work with a customer and she'll build out maybe those 3 or 4 core template screens in Aveda. You know, she's worked with a customer. Hey, Tammy, I really like the layout of this screen. Can we use that layout on the, we're going to add a new page for the campaign that's coming up. Can we use the layout that you designed for us on that other screen? And what's really great about, actually, I think all of these WYSIWYG editors is you can duplicate a page that you had already made. Tammy can do this for you or can show you how to do it. Duplicate it, change the label, change the name. It's going to have a new URL, maybe /campaign/contact, whatever it might be. And then you can switch out the copy. Maybe drop out that image, put in a new image, and voila, you've got your new page. So you've got this really helpful editor that allows you to not have to reinvent the wheel or call your designer every time you want to make new content or a new page on your site. And Tammy's really good about that. She's a pro at working with Aveda. And so she'll set the customer up with those layouts ahead of time. And then the customer can log in. Maybe there's a typo in the copy. Maybe an image needs to be switched out. She can walk them through with a Zoom call or in person and say, okay, here's where you go. Just open this up. There's the image, hit delete, drag your new image from your media library, hit save. And it doesn't take long. You can see on the right-hand side of the slide here, I have a screen grab from Divi, which is the second one on the list. And it's a little bit more colorful than Aveda. That's fun, but you can see how it opens up and I can make my copy changes and hit the green checkbox and save it. And just to complement what Tammy had said at the very beginning, the bottom item on that list is called, we have native WordPress blocks or Gutenberg. When Tammy started off and she said, just get started working with WordPress, that's what she means. When you install or you buy a WordPress site, maybe your GoDaddy or your discount vendor, or maybe you're working with us, you're going to set up and you're going to get set up with the basics. And the basic WordPress editor used to be called Gutenberg. We call it now WordPress blocks. It's the same thing. And it's once you start to use it, you'll find that it's really rich and can be quite complex and complicated, which is great because you can do a lot of stuff with it. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can start just going in there and playing around. And what's nice too is you can go on YouTube and you can Google WordPress blocks, and there's just countless web pages out there with help documents to give you guidance and answer questions. And by the way, you can also go on Reddit and ask questions and folks will help you there as well. I think we covered that pretty well, Tammy, yeah?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, okay, let's hop on to the next slide. And I think this is me, so I'll talk about Google Analytics for a few minutes. And Google Analytics actually ties in nicely with the previous slide. In almost all of those WYSIWYG theme builders, by the way, thank you, Tammy, for that. Almost all those WYSIWYG theme builders that you work with, many of them, most of them on that list, can I go back? I think all of them on this list have the ability for you to plug in your Google Analytics code. And Tammy gets the call from customers. I get the call from customers. We heard about Google Analytics. We want to track web usage of our website, can you plug in Google Analytics for us? What does that mean? So Google Analytics is a service. It's a free service, sort of, from Google that allows you to plug in a tracker into your website. So whenever anybody goes to your web page, your web browser or your phone gets that activity on the phone or in your web browser on your desktop computer is tracked, and that data is collected. It is really scary how much data is collected. So this is that surveillance capitalism that you've been reading about in the news. Google Analytics is sucking down all that data from your phone and from your desktop and tracking your activity on the website. So in a sense, it is free, but there's a cost. If you want privacy, then maybe you might turn on some blockers in your web browser. And that's up to you, the individual user. Website owners like myself, we want to know who is using our website. We want to know about our audience. We want to know which type of mobile devices or desktop devices. We want to know what countries they're coming from. And I want to know which pages on the site are most popular. Google Analytics gives you that data. So Google Analytics is really helpful to the nonprofit or to the business owner because it allows you to make decisions about your advertising spend. It allows you to make decisions about investing into the website and your other social media. It allows you to track how your social media campaigns are working for you. It's pretty exhilarating, and it's a really deep rabbit hole to go into your Google Analytics admin and look at your report. It comes with some default reports. For most folks, that's pretty good. You could actually hire a full-time specialist to build special campaigns and build out special reporting inside Google Analytics so that you can get those metrics that you're really looking for to make better decisions for your nonprofit. Use that, yeah, my bullet items. Use it to measure your progress, of change through time. You can use it to measure if that campaign is working. By the way, you can plug it into your MailChimp campaign. Maybe you're using Constant Contact. You can plug in tracker codes into your mailer campaigns, which is really great. You can also tell, are folks coming to my website from my Instagram social, from my Twitter social stuff that I'm doing, even my trackers over at Facebook. You can also learn about who your users really are. And this is helpful. So we do a lot of security work for our customers. So maybe I'm working with a nonprofit in the Charlotte region, and their audience is really just the Charlotte or North Carolina area. They're not interested in getting traffic from Thailand or the other side of the world. That data is going to show up, as you can see on this screen. The data is going to show up on the reports. And that might lead to a phone call, especially if the numbers are really high. Hey, Ben, we want to make sure that the server and the website runs really fast for our local customers in the region we're trying to serve. We don't necessarily care about those users that are trying to visit the site from the other side of the world. Can you fill in the blank? And so Google Analytics gives us real data that we can trust. That goes back a long time too. We can look at data trends for, in some cases, years with Google Analytics. So very useful tool. Every website owner, every nonprofit should eventually have Google Analytics plugged into their website, keeping in mind there's some tracker stuff going on, and it's being used for advertising and ad tracking and user tracking by Google. Just be aware of that. And oh, and by the way, it may not be tracking all of your users, because in my case, I'm using the Brave browser. I have my little Brave tracker blocker enabled by default. So I may not be getting tracked in this moment. If you're using Safari, you're probably always getting tracked by Google Analytics. So if you're a privacy nut, use a different browser. And if you don't care that much, it's really not that big of a deal. You can just go with what you're currently going with. You'll be okay. I'm going to jump to the next slide. And I'm going to talk about the value of a good designer, why you want to work with someone like Tammy. This is, I'm really passionate about this because I am a techie nerd, and Ross, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Ross is also a techie nerd. And we love doing,
Yeah.
we love doing techie nerd stuff, but if you came to me and said, hey, Ben, thanks for configuring some security or performance stuff, that's great, but can you do some design work for me? Well, my brain doesn't divide evenly with, 50-50 success on each side with regards to how it looks. That's when you call in a specialist like Tammy or a designer that you have a relationship with. And so I have a colleague that I do work with from loopdesign.com, and I took a screen grab from his website. Creative design and brand development that tells stories, sells products, and propels businesses, brands, and ideas. I think that's a really good summary of the relationship you'll have with a brand expert, with a marketing expert, with a really great designer. They have this in mind, someone like Tammy. So whether you choose to work with Tammy or you've got a relationship with somebody, I've got 4 bullet point items on the slide here that I just want to go over with you. So 1, choose your graphic designer, choose your brand designer that you're going to work with based on their track history of success. So if it's just your cousin's niece who is still in high school, but they did a great drawing, that's great. And you should definitely encourage those relationships. But your nonprofit needs to be built on a platform of success. And so I like to look at a designer's portfolio. Every designer worth their budget is going to have a portfolio that you can look at. Decide which designer to work on based on how you're impressed by their portfolios. It's actually pretty easy. You can go to those designers, look at their portfolios. Well, this one's great. That they have a certain style. That's not what I'm trying to do with my nonprofit. Maybe this designer over here, they have a certain style. Wow, I really like that. That resonates for me. I think that there's something to it. Now let's talk, and we'll interview and see if, bullet point number 2, can you communicate well with that person? If you can talk to your designer and they listen to you and you find that you're both kind of on the same page, that's a great start. You need to be able to communicate well with your designer. Just because someone is really spectacular at putting together a brand or a logo work for you, or designing your website, your WordPress website for you, if you can't communicate with them, if they don't respond to you in a timely manner, if you don't feel comfortable, if they don't listen to you, it's probably not a good relationship. And they have competitors, so go find someone that does work well with you. It's one of the reasons I like working with Tammy. She's responsive, she does excellent work. We communicate, we're on the same page, and I just trust her experience. So I kind of skipped over the second one. She's got a track history of success, and I trust her experience. So when I say, hey, Tammy, what do you think? She comes to me with really good, juicy feedback and a knowledgeable answer. And I listen to it, and I trust her. And so I let her do her job. And the reason I say it like that is, and this happens, we see this all the time at the hosting level. A customer will hire a designer. They'll pay a designer a bunch of money to build a logo, build a brand. The designer delivers the final deliverable. Look at this amazing, beautiful work. And then the customer will go in and say, yeah, well, we're going to change that font to this silly font over here, or we're going to change the logos on the color to this hot pink because that's trending really hot right now, and that's what we need to do. Well, you paid your designer who has the experience and knows what they're doing and the training, and you chose them. Trust your designer. So listen to your designer when they talk to you and they share notes about why they arrived at the designs and the work that they've done. And of course, you can communicate with them and provide feedback. But you should also trust the work that your designer does to serve you. Tammy, did I sum that up? Did I miss anything? Was there a 5th bullet point that I failed to put on there?
I don't think so, but I'm happy to follow up with some of your talking points.
Please do, because I think this is so important for folks when they have that relationship with the designer, because it's the kind of thing where, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's the kind of thing where when it's done and the website's out there, that website might be serving you for 5 or 8 years. So boy, you really want to get that look right, because people are going to be looking at that 24/7 for years to come. So yeah, go ahead. I'll
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, so again, with the purpose of the designer is there's what comes to mind is, well, okay, I want it to look good. Obviously, we want it to look good. We want the branding to match. We want the colors to match. We want the look and feel to match. But also, especially with the homepage of your website, you have about less than 10 seconds of someone's attention. How do you convey what your nonprofit does, who you serve, and how they can help? Those are the three things that you want to get across through your cover image, your 1 or 2 sentences of text, above the fold, we call it, whatever you can first see on the screen. You have to convey, especially with imagery, what do you do? Who do you help? What problem do you solve? Marketing 101 is always, what problem do you solve? Whether you're selling clothing, whether you're selling a service, or whether you're a nonprofit, like what problem do you solve? If you specifically work with, say, homeless people, maybe your organization helps that population. So how do you get me to care about this group of people in less than 10 seconds? And it is challenging. It is a lot more challenging. Choosing that cover image and that text is a lot more challenging than you would think. Okay, well, we work with homeless people. Let's just put a picture of a homeless person. Well, do we really want to do that? Is the feeling going to be sad? Is it going, or do we focus on how you help? What is the end result when your organization gets involved in this person's life? What is the end result, or what do you hope the end result is? And how do we portray that with imagery or with a couple sentences? If you've ever gone to a website where there is 100 different links to click, there's buttons everywhere, there's photos and everywhere, it's just overwhelming. It's like shopping at TJ Maxx. It's just too much. There's too much to look at. It's going to take a long time because it's too much. So your homepage needs to be simple, to the point, what you do. And then now that I care, you got me to care, how do I help? Maybe that's volunteering, maybe that's donating, maybe that's attending an event. However it is, you got to get me to know what you do, who you help. And now that I care, what's the next step? All the other stuff can be on your website. It's important to have that information. It just doesn't need to gobble up the homepage. I think the next slide talks about navigation, and we'll go into that. But this is where a designer can help you. Sometimes people within the organization are too close. They're too involved. It's really nice to have a fresh set of eyes who doesn't know maybe anything about you. What feeling are you trying to portray when I visit your site? Is it fun? Is it loud and colorful? Or is it more conservative? Is it more service related? Let's talk about what your story is. And all of that can be done through design. Color's a big deal. Font is a big deal. Imagery is probably the biggest deal, because a lot of times people are not going to read that text, but they are going to look at that image first.
It conveys emotion, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And try not, and stay away from graphs. I had a client who had a vitamin, who swore to me this vitamin was going to change lives. His tagline was, "It's the missing link." We didn't fight, but he was like, "I want this photo." It literally was a chain link, and one of the links was red. Zero emotion. No one cares about a chain link. Like, there's no emotion in that. You're not solving a problem. It's a chain link. Mm-hmm. So we worked together and found, what is the end result of someone using this supplement? What does it change about their life? Like, why do they need it? What is the end result? So same thing with nonprofit. Whatever audience that you work with, what is the end result? Is it home ownership? Is it someone who is succeeding in their job? Are you helping pets find homes? Whatever it is, let's convey your purpose through imagery. And that is why it's really important to have someone who kind of knows what that imagery means. And it doesn't mean, I would call the shots. It's still a conversation. It's still a relationship. Let's do this together.
Tammy, I think about it as challenging you. I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Yeah. I think of it as it's a relationship, because you're trusting your designer, you have mutual respect for each other. But I like it when my designer comes to me, and you kind of touched on it a second ago, they question some of your assumptions. Because you're the nonprofit owner, you're the business owner, you're looking at it from the inside. You don't always see it from the outside. Your designer is going to ask you some critical, maybe some challenging questions that will impact how you present your idea to the world. And
we do. We have conversations, and it forces you to think about that. Well, it's more than just what goes on behind the scenes. It's just some new eyes on your nonprofit. Like, what is it that we're trying to tell them? because you could be easily forgettable. Like, yeah, it's another nonprofit. Okay, well, why are you different? Like, what? Make me care. And so that conversation sometimes, especially I get someone come to me who sells e-commerce. Well, what's that process going to look like? What does your shopper look like? Who's your target audience? Like, how are people getting to your website? And sometimes we don't know. We don't know.
Right. Sometimes we don't know. Tammy, I'm going to take it to the next slide because I think it kind of touches on it a little bit as well. So we have SEO and SEM and the difference. And you kind of touched on a second ago. Ross, are you available? Do you want to take this slide?
I am. Yeah,
right.
I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
So a couple things that Tammy had said, I want to reinforce in this slide. She mentioned navigation. If you do structured navigation in a really good way, Google will pick that up and put it in the search results. If you ever noticed, you might search TJ Maxx, you'll get that TJ Maxx website, but then you'll get some other pages below, like newest fashion, men's, women's, shoes, apparel. Those additional navigation items do come up in search results. So there are two terms here. One's called search engine optimization. Another one's called search engine marketing. So you've got two terms that people have used interchangeably, but they're not truly interchangeable. Search engine optimization has to do with designing your website in a way that search engines are able to crawl the information that's on there, as well as disseminate that information in good search results. Search engine marketing is the Google ads. You have to make a balance between the two, SEO and SEM, to be able to get your website to show up higher in search results. Google is getting better and better at looking at websites and making decisions. Ben had talked earlier about your website loading quickly. People want to get websites that load quickly and show the information accurately. And if your website's not doing that, Google will push you lower in the results. But if your website is quick and gives the answer really in the first page or the first result, then you'll move up higher. The term with navigation is important to keep it simple. Tammy talked a bit about call to action. All right, we need to quickly, we have a few seconds of their attention span, give them your mission, as well as why they should donate to your nonprofit or work with your nonprofit. So all of that kind of ties into each other's. Ben was talking about some free tools that are out there like Google Analytics. There's a plugin for WordPress called the Yoast SEO plugin. So if you install the Yoast SEO plugin, it'll actually help you identify page by page, post by post. Is this a good post? Is this helpful? Will Google crawl it? Does it have enough keywords? Does it have enough detail? Those plugins really help to make sure your website is ready for search engines. There are also some free tools from Google called the Google Search Console and the Webmaster Tools. Google's not trying to be secretive about what's successful and what works. So they're really handing out a lot of free tools to help folks look at their code, their analytics, their website, and how it shows up in search results, as well as what people are searching for. If your nonprofit is in Iredell County, but people are looking for the same mission in Mecklenburg, it'll let you know that you need to add Mecklenburg into your keywords, especially if you also do serve Mecklenburg. So those search results are really important for you to better update and modify your website and design it for folks to find it and find out more about your mission. Google My Business. If someone's on Google Maps and they're looking for your office space or your warehouse or wherever you may be in Charlotte, you want to make sure that that information is up to date. If your nonprofit services outside of 24/7, 365, or if you guys close on Martin Luther King Day, having those pieces of data out there helps to be able to get your clientele to know more about that through Google Maps. I mentioned SEM, search engine marketing, Google AdWords, Google Ad Grants through TechSoup. You have those options. If you're not familiar, TechSoup.org is an amazing website to find lower priced software offerings. Google offers nonprofit discounts. Microsoft has stuff out there. There's a lot. So if you haven't signed up for TechSoup, you aren't really helping yourself to get all the great advantages of being a nonprofit today. All right, Ben. I've gotten some questions in the Q&A. I've answered them. One of them was, where are the recordings for these webinars? And I've posted the links in the chat and in the Q&A. Another question was, what was the browser that you were using? And that's the Brave browser, and I shared a link to that. And the last question was something called Google Analytics 4. Google has created a new Google Analytics. The old one's called Universal Analytics. The new one's called Google Analytics 4. And you need to change and convert your website to use Google Analytics 4 by July of this year, or you will no longer get analytics on your website. So that is
we also call it GA4. So if you hear the GA4 term passed around in your email with your team, you'll know that's what Ross is talking about.
Exactly. All right, Ben, you want to go into the next slide?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, with that Google Analytics, when you log into your Google Analytics account, if you haven't upgraded already, there's a little banner at the top. It's not super bright, so you might overlook it and ignore it. There's a little banner up at the top, and it will walk you through the upgrade process. So just keep that in mind. It makes it a little less painful. Thank you, Ross, for that slide. And did I get to, yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about mobile websites. And this comes up pretty almost on every project we work on. And it used to be an afterthought. And what I mean is Tammy would work with the customer, with the nonprofit, or the designer would work with the customer. And the priority was to build a website for a desktop experience. When I say desktop, that means the computer's on your desk, whether it's a laptop or a, whatever kind of old school desktop you have. Nowadays, we have our iPads and our mobile phones. The developing for the iPad or the mobile device used to be the afterthought. We would kind of build the desktop website first, then we would modify it slightly so that it worked for the mobile phone. Well, not anymore. And so what you have is a little switcheroo. Now we often think about designing for the mobile experience first, or at the same level as designing for that desktop experience. And Tammy and other designers are really used to this now and are comfortable with this. So using those WYSIWYG builders that we talked about, that Tammy talked about in the first slide, she can customize the experience of how the website looks on a desktop screen on your laptop, but she can also modify it ever so slightly for your mobile phone. Now remember, my dog. So remember, your desktop is oriented horizontally, but your mobile phone, most users use their mobile phone in a portrait orientation. So you can't just take a horizontally designed website and mash it into that portrait orientation on your phone. So that requires a little bit of forethought and planning. And again, that's where Tammy and the magic that your designer, that's what they do, they're going to make that work for you. There may be some sacrifices, some pros and cons, but it's worth it because we see the trend. I grabbed this chart and I put the link for the source up there. We see the trend of folks using their mobile phones more and more to go and learn about the business or the nonprofit that they're interested in. Maybe they got that link from a social or from Facebook, but they're using their mobile phone to go there. It just happened recently. I was at a nonprofit site here in Charlotte for a project that we were interested in, and the mobile site was obviously developed as an afterthought to the desktop website, and it was pretty close to unusable, which was a disappointment because we really wanted to engage with that nonprofit and help those local stray cats. So are there any other thoughts on this slide, Tammy, that before I move on to the next one? I know you have a lot of experience with this. You cross it a lot.
Yeah. I would just kind of what you hit on is that, you've got the horizontal on desktop. Mobile used to mean taking a site and shrinking it down super tiny so that it fits a phone. And that's not mobile design. That's not mobile optimized. It is now stacking. Whereas you'd have 3 columns, now you still have 1, just items are now stacking on top of each other. And sometimes the mobile version may actually look quite different than the desktop version. And that is just for simplicity, for ease of use, for navigation. So yes, so if you're DIY, you're doing your own website, that's fantastic, but do not forget to go check phones, tablets, even laptop screens are smaller than I have this massive screen on my desktop. There's 4 and 5 different screens that you need to check your site on and make sure it works and looks good across all of them.
That's right. And you know, a little cheat too is if you don't, you know, maybe you just have one phone in your pocket, like most of us do, you could actually grab and change the orientation of your website on your screen to kind of like the shape of a mobile phone. And that's an easy cheat. I mean, that's one way to do it. There's other tools that are available so you can test multiple devices. But sometimes if a customer calls me up and says, hey, Ben, the mobile phone is rendering funny on for my website, I'll just drag the browser over really quick and just change the orientation. And I can go, oh yeah, you're right. I see that too. Okay, cool. So there's an easy way to inspect your website really quick if you want to trial the mobile display without actually bringing it up on your phone. Thanks, Tammy.
Yep.
I'm going to jump over to the next one, and this is my slide that I added in, and it's going to be the last slide. And I have just a few minutes, Jennifer, and so I'll talk about domain names because they have an impact. And so nonprofits. Well, I get the question. Well, I'm a nonprofit. Does that mean I have to get a .org? And the answer is no. You don't have to get a .org. You can't get a .mil or a .gov, but you can get a .com if you want. You can get a .net. And a .org is a good fit if it's available and the price is right. And so I just did I know it's misspelled, but I wanted to see that the domain was available in my little screen grab here on this image. So I went and I did a search at a vendor that I like to use because their pricing is very fair and transparent, and their customer support is excellent. And I'm not getting a kickback, by the way, on this. So easydns.com is the vendor. Instead of using GoDaddy, I like to use EasyDNS because there's no surprise billing on the invoicing, which is a problem that we see with a lot of vendors, resellers, registrars, they're called, that sell domain names. So EasyDNS, and I go there and I just do a search for homelessshowers.org, and voila, I found that domain name is available. How much is it? It's $17 a year. You don't really ever own a domain name, you're just renting it. So you have to pay yearly to keep ownership and keep control of that domain name for your nonprofit. So if you want to do that on your own, you would just log in and buy it for a year and just put your card on file, and it'll auto charge it every year after that. Or if you're extra paranoid like I am, I'll go ahead and pay in advance for 5 years. And that way I know that I'm good for 5 years. There's no risk of me forgetting to renew it and I lose the domain name. And if that happens, by the way, your website goes down, your email goes down, and maybe all the other stuff that you have connected to that domain name no longer works, which is kind of scary. So questions about which domain name should I get? Because I can get a .org, I can get a .com, but I can also get a .app or a .biz or a .xyz. Should I buy all those TLDs? What's a TLD? It's a top level domain. It's the word that comes after that .com, .org, TLD. So Ben, should I get other TLDs for my company, for my project? And I think the short answer is no. And the reason is because you don't know what the future holds for your nonprofit, and it can get real expensive. .coms and .orgs are relatively inexpensive. A .com at EasyDNS will probably cost you $18 a year, and a .org tends to be just a few pennies more. But a .io is something like $70 a year. A .xyz, I think, is $45 a year. A .co is $60 a year. Boy, those get expensive after a while if you have a portfolio of domains. Some organizations do acquire a portfolio of domains because they want to protect their brand. They'll buy 50 or 100 domains, and they'll redirect them all to the .com because they don't want somebody else to come along and acquire that one obscure domain, the .xyz, and maybe write something bad about them or try to do something that confuses their brand. That has its place. If you have the budget and that's a concern, you've talked about it with your marketing specialist and your designer, then sure, go down that path. Normally, I recommend for folks that are in startup mode, just getting their MVP off the ground with their nonprofit or their startup, I say, go ahead and find that .com or that .org that's just right for you and stick to it. The second point is not to overpay. You could go to GoDaddy or some of the other registrars and do a lookup for a domain name and find that somebody, we call them squatters, somebody already owns it and they're willing to sell it to you at a jacked up price. All right, so this is an inevitability. It's capitalism. We happen to live in that society. So there are individuals that go buy that domain name because they think it's going to be sought after. And instead of selling it for $17, they sell it for $1,700. If it's that important to you and you need to have it and you're not willing to change the name of your organization or go with a slightly alternate domain name that still works with your organization, then that's a decision or a conversation you're probably going to have with your management team. Should I shell out the $1,700 for that domain name and then pay the $17 a year to renew it? Is that good value? There are some domain names. I think I just heard about a domain name last month that sold for $50,000. Well, for that particular use case, for that business, it might have been the right fit. Maybe for your nonprofit starting out, really watching your budget closely, that may not be the right fit. Premium domain names are really short domain names. I think of premium domain names are domains that have 3 or 4 letters to the left of the dot. So maybe an acronym, abcd.com. Those are premium domain names. They tend to be a little bit higher in price because math, they are a little bit more rare. And then, of course, should I get that .biz, that XYZ? I find that those are less popular. The real valuable domain names, the ones that people are just used to, and I think it's a generational thing, are those .coms, those .orgs, the .nets. If you want to kick off your nonprofit with the .biz, or I'm just drawing a blank, maybe a .app or a .xyz, you could try that. It might work for you, but chat with your marketing people and your designer and see if that's a good fit for your nonprofit and your brand. Once you go down that path, can it be changed? Yes, you can change all your emails, you can change the website address, but you got to communicate that to your audience. You have to redo all your search engine marketing work. It can be a little bit of a drag, and I'll just say it's probably not what you really want to do. So put time into going to EasyDNS and doing lookups for domain names that fit well with your organization, what you want to do. And I'll give you another little secret trick. For example, I have a project called Links that I work on, LYNX, like the cat. So of course, links.com isn't available and links.org isn't available. So what I did was I just looked up the word, the domain name with the word links in it, but other stuff either prepended to it or appended to it. So we ended up settling with get links. And that seemed to work for us. So because it was the nature of the project that we were working on. So you could say, instead of homelessshowers.org, you could say help us with homelessshowers.org. I know that's a silly example, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Append or prepend other words or verbs to the domain name, and that might expose you to a whole new array of domains that are available to you at a reasonable cost. Maybe you don't have to buy it from a squatter at a jacked up price. Ross, I know this crosses your desk as well. Do you have any other thoughts to add to the domain name conversation before we kind of wrap up? We've got like 1 minute, so.
Yeah, okay, I'll speak really quickly. No, I'm kidding. So a lot of it has to do with the domain squatters, but also you don't want to let your domains lapse. If you have changed names, I did have a nonprofit change their name. They let the old domain go, and unfortunately someone nefarious has now grabbed that domain. So be careful also about letting domains go. I know it's a cost savings, but realize that somebody may grab that domain after you let it go. So just keep that risk in mind.
Yeah, that does happen. I've had customers call me up and say, we didn't renew it, or the card lapsed, or the card expired on file. Can you rescue it? Can you get it back? I have been able to do that once or twice, but boy, that was just a lucky situation. So if you're working with a discount vendor like GoDaddy, really go in there, spend a few extra minutes, make sure the card on file is good, and you've clicked the auto renew checkbox. Or if you're going to work with a white glove vendor like our company, we just take care of it for you. You've got that peace of mind of knowing that it's all in a good state. Tammy, have you had a horror story or something else to add to that?
No, just keep in mind when you have a domain, it's marketing. It doesn't need to be super crazy long. You don't want to have acronyms that no one really knows what they mean.
Yeah.
especially if you have a common word, the domain is probably taken. So just being creative and seeing what else is out there. If you're local, you can always add CLT. You can always, I'm in Lake Norman, so LKN. So just think of like when you're having to tell someone this domain that actually it makes sense, something that they would understand.
That's right. Yeah, making it, that's a great idea too, making it local or making it regional, NC, something nc.org. What a great way to get that domain that you're looking for, but also tying it to a regional thing. And so that might open up some options for you of domains that might otherwise have been unavailable. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the last slide. Here's our contact information, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. I did want to try to sneak one question in that has yet to be answered. It was one that a registrant put in. So in these last couple of minutes before we wrap, the question is this: can you name, in your opinion, what are the most important but underutilized tools in WordPress that a nonprofit could take advantage of? The top 2 or 3 tools that you think are underutilized but really important.
I can give you one, and that would be blogging. Sometimes I tell people blogging and they kind of get the deer in the headlights look. It does not mean you have to write dissertation for every post. It can be something as simple as you had an event, talk about the event, talk about if you raised money, post a couple photos, take that link, put it on your social media. So if people actually want to read about it, they've got to go back to your website. So you're driving all that traffic back to your website. Blogging can be if you've hired someone, if you just have a couple photos of some volunteers for a project, if you have a new campaign, if you have a new spin, whatever it is, use it as a news feed. That is what a blog feed is a news feed. And then rather than throwing all that content directly on social media, put it on your blog, use that blog. Google loves blogs. Try to add keywords if you can, and then share those links on social to drive that back to you.
I mean, we see success with our customers, I think, all the time when they get on a campaign of regularly publishing blogs, every other week, once a month. It has a positive effect on their website and its ranking, and we see it in the Google Analytics reports. I 100% agree with you. And to complement your idea, Tammy, is that free plugin called Yoast. It's YOAST, Yoast SEO. It's a free plugin. You can install it, and it provides you some step-by-step green, yellow, red scores on a per page or per blog post level. You don't have to have greens across the board. That doesn't really matter, but use the plugin to spend a little bit of time each week, maybe an hour a week, and follow some of the guidance that it provides in there, like a better slug or some meta keywords. And it'll index and look at each one of the pages, as Google will, and it will help you get a better understanding of how that page or post or that blog post is going to rank or be seen by Google. You don't have to pay a fancy SEO company hundreds of dollars a month. You're wasting your money. You could instead just use the free SEO plugin and follow its guidance. And by the way, it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing thing that you do on your website over time.
Those are some great tips. And thank you for answering that question. And just in general, thanks for the really excellent content that you guys provided. I think it really lays a great foundation for people to figure out the way forward to really leverage WordPress and make hay with their websites. We sure do appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you so much, Tammy, Ben, and Ross. And for our audience, thank you so much for making time to join us. As I mentioned, we'll follow up on Monday with links to the resources associated with this webinar. And stay on the lookout. Of course, we'll be hosting additional series coming down the line, and we'd love to have you join us again as we go forward with some new topics and information for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Aparo if you have questions or need more guidance. And of course, you'll have the contact details for our panelists, and we would be more than welcome for you to follow up with them with additional questions or perhaps some service provision. Again, thanks everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.